up here. Is it showing live? Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, there it is. Perfect. Is it yeah. You want that volume? Why? Yeah, but there's volume on there. 1 second, guys. Wow, that was the slowest volume slowing down in my life. All right. Hey, Steve, how are you, buddy? Hi, Gavin. So as you guys may have noticed already that it's just me for tonight, which should mean that the podcast is going to be about an hour shorter for you guys. Because unlike Dad, I'm not as good at just sitting here and talking to myself for several hours. So we have a really, really cool topic, though, that I want to talk about tonight that I think is really going to give you guys some tangible things to help you. So as you saw, the title is How to Keep Your Composure. I would be willing to bet one of the number one toughest things I see for guys is how to get themselves to control their excitement and their emotions when they get presented with the shot. So it's extremely hard to get to the place where we have a shot, right? But when we actually are in the moment and it's time to draw and we get to full draw and settling the pin to make the shot, I believe is one of the hardest things for a bow hunter to do. So we're going to go over some things that have helped me personally do a better job at making shots, that some things that my dad uses, and then I want to hear what your guys' tactics. If you have certain things that you actually put into place when you're about to shoot an animal. So we'll go over mine in a minute. I'll have to check comments and talk to you guys, so you're just going to have to bear with me. Mike, how are you, buddy? David, how are you? Tracy's here. Dustin's here. Bree says, don't look at the rack. Focus on your shot placement. That is absolutely true. So we're going to do a little bit of an order here on getting to the shot, on some things that you can do to help yourself. Get to the shot and then make a shot and execute to the highest probability of making a good shot. The number one thing, so I'm going to give you guys 4 tips here. Number one thing that you first need to do is set yourself up to be successful. So whether you're elk hunting, whether you're deer hunting, antelope hunting, whatever that you're doing, you need to put yourself in a position that you can be successful and make a shot to begin with. Okay, if you set up for elk, if you set up on an elk and your caller's behind you and he's calling his bull to you and he's coming right in, but you've set up where you're behind a tree and then there's a whole bunch of timber in front of you, and unless that elk is at 10 yards, you can't get a shot, you haven't really set yourself up for success. If you're set up on a deer, let's say you've done a great job, you've planted this beautiful food plot, and you've got your stand up, it's in the perfect spot, but you didn't cut any shooting lanes, you're not set up for success. You're not giving yourself the best opportunity. Now you're going to have to try and contend with getting a shot around those limbs or around those obstacles when you finally do get that epic opportunity. So let's see. Dustin Shell says, aim small, miss small. That's absolutely true. Breathe. That always helps, Mike. Jose, how are you, buddy? Number 2. So now we're going to take the step from we've set ourselves up for success. We're getting into position to actually have an animal come in. Now we want to read the animal. And what do I mean by read the animal? What I mean by read the animal is understand if that animal is alert, if it's chasing does, if it's calm, if it's feeding, if it's passing through the area. All of these things I want to keep in mind because that's going to affect how that animal may react when I get a shot. Okay, if I have an animal that has been spooked, or maybe it's a deer, let's just take a deer, for instance, a deer I've busted out of this stand or this area within a week's time frame. He might be a little edgy, and he's coming by, and it seems as though he's definitely alert. Okay, so alert means His ears are going to be up. He's not feeding. He's stopping. He's looking around everywhere. He's nervous. Now, when that deer gets me to a shot opportunity, I am not going to risk drawing on him unless he's looking somewhere else. He's walked behind a tree. He's done something to give me 100% opportunity to draw, and I'm going to aim low. And when I say aim low, I'm not saying I'm going to aim at the bottom of his brisket. I'm going to aim at his heart because I'm anticipating that deer is going to duck. And 99% of the time, if they're alert, 100% of the time they're going to duck. So you need to make sure that you understand what animals are going to be doing, what their actions mean to help yourself the most. And that takes a lot of experience. Don't think that you're going to be able to go out there your first year or even your second year and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to hop in the stand and expect yourself to understand what a deer is thinking or what their every action that they take means, because it's not going to happen. So make sure that you are learning that stuff and you're picking it up and you're making mental notes, but don't expect yourself to know that right off of the bat. So number 3, know your yardages and when to shoot. And the other one I'm throwing there is when to draw. Okay, knowing yardages, it can be very easy sometimes. If you're in a whitetail stand, it's a lot easier because all you got to do is you take your rangefinder and range stuff before you have an animal there. So right when you get in the stand, as long as there's not a whole bunch of deer around or you're getting busted, things like that, range other trees, range the trail they come out on, range the wherever you believe the deer are going to be. Anything that is prolific and stands out, range that. Now don't range 300 things, and so then when you got a deer come by, you're like, oh, that was item 233. I have no idea what that yardage is, okay? So give yourself just a couple things and be able to adjust. I know a whole lot of guys that have to have an animal down to the yard, meaning it's got to be, they have to know it's 24, and they got to dial their pin to 24. You should have practiced enough to be able to slightly move your pin to where you're going to be able to make that shot, okay? 24 yards, that's not a big deal. You should be able to split pins, and a yard is not going to make a difference. You're going to be able to, as long as you put your pins where they need to be, you're going to make that shot. It's going to be lethal. So make sure you've done that homework. Just get a couple ranges. And now the other thing that you want to do is once you have deer start coming by, figure out where the majority of them are coming by. And especially if you're a new hunter, practice drawing on a couple, especially does. Draw on a couple and get used to feeling what they're doing and find those items that can help you draw. So if there's a tree that blocks their field of view when they come by, use that to draw. If there's a certain angle where they're always looking away, use that to draw. So I'm going to show you guys a video here real quick. And this is going to talk about exactly what I was explaining here. Get the right one. Still not the right one. All right. So this is a deer I shot a few years ago in 2016, I believe. So you can see this deer is coming. He is right under us. So this trail is maybe 7-8 yards in front of us is all. And so you may, if you're like me, you're probably like, why didn't you shoot him right there? The reason I didn't shoot this deer when he's 5-6 yards in front of the stand is I never had an opportunity to draw. So he's right underneath us there, as you can see. There was no way I could have drawn without him busting me. So notice I still haven't drawn yet. Now right here I'm drawing. As soon as he turned his head, so as soon as that deer, let me play that for you one more time here. As soon as he turns his head, right there, see that? That's when I drew, because I knew he couldn't see me any longer. And then I grunted at him right there, perfect quartering away shot, and then make the shot. So understanding when you can draw, when is a good time to draw, and understanding, honestly, there is even a little bit of method on how to draw. And what I mean by that is, if you are one of those guys who's trying to pull 90 pounds to shoot through a whitetail, and you got to draw on your stand like this, you're going to bust a lot of deer. You don't need to do that. So make sure you know when to draw. Elk, it is one of the most essential things that you need to know when you go elk hunting. Because if you draw on elk when you're not supposed to, I promise you every time you're gonna get busted and they're gonna wheel on you. You need to have a tree or some object that's gonna block them. So know your yardages when you shoot. So here's another one. I'm gonna show you an elk, okay? This elk, this is also a good indicator of why you need to be able to guess yardage. Because if you can't guess yardage, there'll probably be a point in time where it's going to cost you an animal. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about here in 1 minute. All right, so here comes this elk. We literally just ran up the side of the mountain. We had one bull come below us. He got below us and got downwind and busted. And then my dad was calling. He was calling behind me, and he's signaling, telling me to run up the hill. I was telling him he's crazy, but I did it. And there was another bull, which is this one, coming around. So I literally just ran up the hill, and now I'm trying to make a shot and decide what this elk is at. And a method that I use for that when I don't have time to use my rangefinder is I played football. So I use 10-yard increments, first down. I look at an object, let's just say a tree, and say, okay, that's 10 yards. And then I double it. And I was like, okay, that's 20. And if you're shooting your bow often enough, you should be able to look at 20 and be like, and feel pretty comfortable on what that range is. And then I say, okay, if it's one more, it's 30. I figured this bull was about 30 to 35. The other nice thing about elk is your pins will fit on pretty much all of their vitals. So if you guys are shooting if you're shooting anywhere near 300 feet per second, which a lot of you guys are, if you're pulling 70 some pounds and you're shooting a 400 grain, 450 grain arrow, you're probably still at least in the 290 range with a lot of the new bows. At the lowest, probably 270s. Your pin gap is not going to be very wide. You could have your 20, 30, 40, and maybe even your 50 still on the vitals. I knew when I drew on this bull, I had a React Trio at the time, so it's only a 3-pin. All 3 of my pins easily fit in his vitals. So that makes it really nice for guessing yardage. So I stopped him, and as you can see, that arrow went right where it needed to go. I'll show you one more time. So I just put all my pins on there. I knew he was about 30, and that arrow landed right there. So I'm not saying that that's the best method, because you want to know that you have a good idea of what that animal's distance is. And what I mean by that is if it's closer to 30 than he is 40, you want to have a good idea that you're putting that 30 pin on there, or 35, rather than shooting him for 40 and hitting him high, or whatever the case might be. But try and remember that, guys. Your bows, when they're that fast, as fast as they are now, your pin gap is small. Put as many of those pins on there as you can if you're really, really not sure. And so if you got the whole vital zone and you got 3 pins in there, you should be able to have a really good idea on where you're at. Now, if you don't believe that you're anywhere near what you need to be and you're not comfortable, don't take that shot. Be ethical about it and don't take that shot. So, knowing your yardages and when to shoot. So that's another thing, like I was just talking about. And when you stop an animal, like I did, like that elk, I stopped him. There's a good chance that they're going to duck, or they're going to try and move because they're alert, and now they're looking at you. They're anticipating something happening. So now we're going to go into what we really are going to talk about here, which is how do you control the nerves? You've worked so hard. You spent a ton of time. You've tried to get into this position. You've planted food plots. You've hung stands, or you've hiked miles and miles, and you've called the bulls, and you haven't been able to do it. And then now everything is coming together. And now all of this is leading to this one moment, and your heart is pounding out of your chest. It's going absolutely nuts. And it gets hard, right? Everything that you think of when you're practicing, all the rituals you go through, every step that you take in your mind when you're practicing goes right out the window. And I believe that it does in the mental sense, meaning that when you have that happen, when you have an animal that's coming in and that you're getting a shot, that most of that is going to go out the window, that most people aren't going through steps in their head. They're not going to be able to draw, say, all right, I'm going to get my anchor, I'm going to check my bubble, oh, I need to make sure that I float my pin on his lungs and then squeeze and follow through. Most people are going to draw back and, I don't know, the pin looked close and I shot, which is fine. That's why we practice, because it's muscle memory that we want to take over, right? It's just like when you start driving a car for the first time. When you were turning right, you didn't always check that left side before you started driving, right? And then you learn to do it. Now you probably drive every time you turn right, you look to the left, and then you go again. You don't ever think about it anymore. When you were doing that with animals, it gets very, very similar. I used to have a really hard time making the shot on animals. I could shoot great at targets. I could hit whatever I wanted on a target. And then when it would come to the time that I would have an animal in front of me at my effective range, 20, 30, 40, whatever it may be, I'd have a really hard time putting that arrow where it needed to be. And part of that problem was I had no thought process. It was just pure adrenaline and drawn back, and once my bow was pointed near that animal, I was flinging an arrow. I had no control over the situation. And so I started doing a couple things that really helped me. I'm going to share with you guys two methods. One is the one that I use, and then I'll share with you my dad's. His view on it is a little different than mine, and I don't like some things about it. So we'll talk about that. I guess I'll go over his first. So my dad's method to calming himself down and to holding his nerves back is when he has an animal coming in and he's pretty sure he's going to get a shot, he constantly tells himself, this might not happen, or if this doesn't happen, it's all right, I'll get another shot. Basically trying to calm himself down, saying, you know what, this might not happen, it's going to be okay. Which, if that works for you, that's great. It works for him. He does a great job. He's very lethal when he shoots at animals, and he does a really good job keeping his composure. It does not work for me, and the reason it doesn't work for me is because when we talked about step number 2, learning how to read the animal, when I know that animal is going to come in, when I have an elk or a deer or whatever, and I know it's going to happen, because I think as hunters, we all know there's certain times when you have an animal that is doing exactly what they're supposed to, or at least they're close enough now that they've broken that barrier of they have to come by you or they have to do this, and you know you're going to get a shot opportunity. For me, I lose the doubt of this might not happen. It becomes, I know this is going to happen, and I'm going to get a shot, and my heart goes nuts. I can't tell myself, hey, this isn't going to happen, because it is happening. So that's his method, and it works for him. It doesn't work for me, and that's the reason it doesn't work for me. And so now I'm going to tell you what I do. What I do when I have an animal coming in is I burn a hole. That's what I call it. I absolutely burn a hole in them. So what I mean by that, let's see here. And if you guys have particular methods that you use, let me know. I want to hear them. I'm really interested to hear this, because I don't know if anybody else has a actual method that they put into place on this. I know I had some other clips on here. All right, we'll just use this one because I know it's good. So this is Easton's deer a few years ago here that he rattled in. Okay, so now what I mean when I say I'm going to burn a hole. So as soon as I've deciphered that this is a shooter, that this is an animal that I want to take, now the only thing that I focus on is 3 things. 1, the animal's behavior. 2, when to draw. 3, the yardage. And then also the vitals, obviously. So all I'm doing is I'm staring right behind his shoulder. So if I want to hit him right here, he could be 80, 90 yards away, and all I do is stare at that. I just stare at that and stare at that and stare at that spot, and absolutely that's the only thing I stare at. If he's quartered away a little, I stare at where I need to hit him quartered away. If he's broadside, I stare at where I need to hit him broadside. And then the only other things that I'm taking into account, making sure that the animal is calm, or if he's alert, that I'm taking that into account, and then I might burn my hole a little lower. I might go right here, but I'm literally only going to stare at exactly where I want to hit that animal, and that's the only thing I'm going to focus on. For me, that helps me to quit thinking about the rack and the animal. I can still read the animal. It becomes pretty natural once you've done it a lot. I can kind of tell what he's going to do. I can see my yardage markers, and then when you do get that opportunity, it is second nature. Just as I was talking about before, now when you drive and you come to a stop sign and you're turning right, every one of us, we look to the left. If you don't, you're probably the person that I honk at all the time. But if you do, it's now second nature, right? You don't think about that. Think about when you first started driving. Did you really go to every stop sign, and after you decided it was clear, did you check to the left again? Probably not. But now you do, and you don't even think about it. When you get this opportunity and you've been staring at nothing but that, now when you draw and your mind goes blank and you don't think about anything, what is your pin going to do? It's going to go the last thing that you've been obsessing over, the only thing you've been thinking about. And naturally, without you even cognizantly doing it, your brain is going to make you put that pin there. And there's research on this kind of stuff. Your pin is going to go right there and you're going to make that shot. For me, it has been a huge game changer. Because I can't get all of the nerves out. I can't get all of the excitedness out. And that's allowed me to really, really calm down and make that shot. Still try and calm down, still try and contain your breathing and think through everything. But for me, I just know when that adrenaline hits, that is what I have to do to make sure I can place that arrow there. Let me read a couple of your guys' comments here. Jeremy Jackson says, muscle memory is key. Exactly what we just talked about. James says, time in the situation helps. I assure myself also. Yep. Sean Albert, for me, the instant I realize I'm taking the animal, I zone out the animal and focus on the kill spot. I'm talking match tip spot. That way I'm not intimidated by the animal. That's exactly what I do. Exact same thing. Brandon says, mentally check off steps and release on exhale. Some hold breath and get target panic if deer gets in the peak. Yeah, and I found for me, I don't have the mental control to go through steps. I just can't get myself to do it, which is why I practice a lot. And that's where I've got into the habit of, if I just absolutely stare at that spot and burn a hole in it over and over and over again, my pin goes there. And for me, I've been pretty fortunate that I've actually kind of been able to compare this to some things. So I don't know why, but turkeys, for whatever reason, I lose my crap. I cannot shoot turkeys to save my life because they get me really, really amped. I don't know why, but they do. And so when I get a turkey to come in, I miss a lot. But now lately, I've been able to use my method of burning a hole in them and hit them where I need to hit them. But the other thing that I have with turkeys, for me personally, turkeys they're not easy as an animal as far as shot placement. It's not as simple as put it right behind the shoulder, or he squirted away, put it on the offside leg. It's a little more difficult in the fact of, okay, where's his drumsticks? His feathers are here. You got to go third of the way up, and trying to figure out exactly where that arrow needs to be. I have to think a lot more about the angles on turkeys because they can be in so many, and I have to think a lot more about that shot, which doesn't allow me to just burn a hole where I want to hit them. And so then being able to compare that to shooting at a big game animal, I have a huge difference. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to brag to you guys, but I've got, of the last animals that I've shot, I don't know, I've had probably 15 to 20 that are all pretty much perfect shots. Now there's a couple that I've made mistakes on, such as my biggest deer. I made a mistake and I didn't aim low enough, and he ducked and I hit him in the spine. If he had not ducked, we do have footage, fortunately, it would have hit him right in the lungs. I didn't read that animal properly. I didn't put my pin where I should have. I put it right on his lungs. I should have been on his heart. But is what I'm trying to say is this method I've been fortunate to try many times now, and it has been a game changer for me. And I know a lot of people that have tried it and put it into action, and it's really, really helped them as well. So if you have a really hard time controlling yourself in that situation, controlling your nerves, and being able to execute and make that shot, I would encourage you to try this. It's been huge for me. When I was younger, I missed a lot of animals, and the problem with that was I couldn't go through a checklist. I couldn't calm down. I couldn't keep my nerves. The other thing I couldn't do was draw my bow and shoot. And so sometimes I would get lucky and make the shot. But once I was able to get an actual method, it's helped me execute tremendously. Obviously, experience is just going to help too. The more experience you get, the more times you're in the driver's seat, the more capable you're going to get to do that. The other thing that I would tell you guys is no matter what, once you've made the shot, once you've done everything right and you've made that shot, try not to get too excited or too confident until you've either seen that animal go down, absolutely heard him go down, or you saw a ton of blood pumping out when you hit both lungs. Because I've seen some things now that I would tell you 400% is a dead animal, and then come to find out something weird happened, and I was messing it up more because I thought something else was the case. Let me show you this one here. So this is a deer I shot a few years ago. That was a really nice buck. We did find him, fortunately. He's about a 160-inch deer. Play it from here for you guys. So you can see him right there. That's Dad's handy camera work there. He doesn't know where the deer is. So this deer is alert. We actually had a doe and fawn that were right underneath us at that time that had kind of winded us. They weren't sure, but you can see how he's kind of walking a little stiff-legged. He's not 100% confident and calm. He's a little nervous. But watch right here. So you can see right where my arrow went there. That was 30 yards. Let me show you one more time here. See if I can't stop it. Well, you can kind of tell. So you can see right there that my arrow is perfect. It is right behind the shoulder. That deer we found 2 days later. And the reason that we found him 2 days later is because what actually happened is the broadhead caught just the very, very tip of his shoulder, and it glanced back and it came out his guts on the other side. So here we'd been pushing this deer. When we first went and looked for blood, we had a ton of blood. We found a pile of blood, just exactly what you'd expect out of what you assumed would be a double lung shot. And then we started running out of blood, and we tracked this deer for almost probably 500 or 600 yards before we finally got ourselves to back out. We went back, watched the footage 400 times, and could not figure out why this deer wasn't dead. Well, when we finally did find him, that's what we found out, was that broadhead had actually caught right on the very, very tip of that shoulder where there's a little curve there, and it came out in his guts. And we'd been pushing him for a day and a half now, and then fortunately we still managed to find that deer. But try and keep your composure even through the shot, even when you've executed it, just until you know for sure that animal's down. That way you keep your wits about you and you don't do something that could hurt you more in the situation further, because sometimes things are going to happen that are out of your control. You may do everything absolutely right, do it perfect, and be in a situation where you can't find your deer. I had the same exact thing happen right there. Did not have any inclination that could even that deer would be able to live more than 30 minutes, and he made it for 2 days. So if you guys have questions, shoot them in. I saw we had a couple. Element of surprise, better or worse for you, watching your target for 30 minutes or the sneaky old brute is steps away from you out of nowhere? Oh, I think the elements of surprise is better for me, Sean. I like it when it happens quick because I don't have time to think about everything that's going on. And when it just comes in, happens, and I make the shot and I'm done, that to me, I control myself better. When I have them there for 30 minutes and my heart gets pumping and I get excited about it, and I'm just waiting for them to do what I want them to do, and then they finally start doing it, my heart goes nuts. I get super jacked and super excited, and then I have to calm myself down again. But I just get super pumped, and so the element of surprise definitely I think helps me, because I am able to just implement what I'm telling you guys right now and execute, instead of having to think about it for a half an hour, which we've had that happen before too, and it's fun, but it's also will drive you nuts. So, trying to see if you guys have any other questions here. You guys have any?
Your dad's throwing his 2 cents in.
What's that?
He said something about we found him 2 days later because we couldn't find him the first day.
Well, that was a.
I use the same method as you. I burn a hole in them.
Burn a hole in them.
Concentrate on anything else besides where my shot needs to be.
Yep.
And it helps me take that focus on the antlers is a big thing, because when you look down at your stand and see 180-inch deer coming in, you're like instantly, shut. I mean, adrenaline sets in and then you're screwed.
Yep. Dakin's saying that he does the same exact thing, and I know guys that have. I know a guy that's hit a 400-inch bull in the antlers. Literally, they found the shed with his friggin' arrow sticking out of the bull's antler, because same thing. When all you're looking at is the antlers, just as it would go to the lungs, that's where your pin goes. So we're gonna ignore Dad because he's harassing us on here. He can't handle not being on here and talking. I told you guys that he has a hard time not hearing himself talk, so he's still managed. It's pretty impressive. But if you guys have other methods, let us know. I found for me and for a lot of people, that newbies and people that have had a hard time overcoming that has been one of the best methods, is burning a hole in it and forcing yourself to think about nothing but where that arrow needs to hit. So really, I don't think that we need to drag tonight on really long. It was
I think another big thing for people is having the confidence to shoot. I mean, to make those shots.
Yeah.
Regardless of the yardage, I mean, you got to have confidence in your bow.
Yep.
I mean, if you've been struggling shooting your bow in the backyard, you're not going to have the confidence to go to the stand and make a shot on an animal that way.
Oh yeah. Dakin was saying, I don't know if you guys could hear him or not. Dakin was saying he thinks that it's absolutely essential that you have confidence in your bow and in your setup. And I could not agree anymore. Because if you aren't 100% confident that when that shot comes that you're going to be able to make that shot, you will freeze up, or you're just going to smack the trigger and your arrow's going to go wherever. Easton, you should ask him about a turkey when he was 12 in Nebraska. Walks by at like 4 yards, perfect, absolutely best situation ever, and he just doesn't shoot. He literally just does not shoot. He's stone cold, doesn't do anything, and we're like, what the heck? And he's like, I just froze up. And he wasn't 100% confident in himself and his bow. If you are not 100% confident in your bow, you need to keep practicing. You need to shoot more at targets, or you need to close in your effective range, because I agree with Dakin 100%. If you're not 100% confident in your bow, you're not going to make the shot either. I know when I go out in the woods, I could have a hole this big at 30 yards. That's all I need. I don't need to worry about all of the trees around. I've hunted with some people this year that were worried about 2 trees like 9 feet apart. And I'm like, man, if you can't thread it through that, we're in big trouble. You've got to be able to go through that. You need to understand that you should be aiming at a golf ball. So you should be able to put it through something like that without any issue. There shouldn't be a problem there, and you need to have the confidence to do that. And so you need to be practicing constantly. All the time you need to be shooting your bow and making sure that you're comfortable there. You need to make sure you're doing it in clothes that you're going to be wearing when you're actually hunting. Put yourself in situations that you could be in, shooting between sticks, shooting between trees, shooting over hills, from inclines, whatever that may be. Get yourself used to practicing how you're going to be hunting. Wearing gloves, anything that you need to do to make sure that you're going to be prepared when you get that shot, do it. Because especially if you're hunting for a big buck or whatever that may be, you're going to get one opportunity most of the time. You're not going to get a whole bunch of chances. You need to make sure that you make that opportunity count. Holy crap, Dad's blowing us up.
I wish Dude was back.
All right, we'll go to the raised hunting one right now, so we don't have to read those anymore. So, let me make sure you guys don't have any other questions on here real quick. He's supposed to be helping set up for Kansas camp. I don't know what he's doing. All right, let me check here. James, I'm not sure that I'm 100% with you on what you mean there. So if you could elaborate on that a little bit, maybe we can answer your question there. So, reviewing it real quick, set yourself up for success. Put yourself in a position that you're going to be able to have a good shot, that you're going to be able to make an easy shot. When I say set myself up for success, I don't try and set myself up for a 50-yard shot, a 60-yard shot. I'm trying to give myself a 12-yard shot, chip shot. Set yourself up for success. Put yourself in a position that's going to make your shot easy. Number 2, read the animal. Learn animal behavior. I believe it's the number one most effective thing when it comes to being a good hunter, is understanding what animals are going to do, what they are going to do when you grunt at them, how they're going to react when you shoot at them, what they're going to do, how they're going to behave. That's the number one thing. Learn that. Number 3, know your yardages, know when to draw, know when to shoot. And then number 4, learn to control your nerves. My method is burn a hole in where you want to hit them. My dad's method is tell yourself it's not going to happen. As I told you, that doesn't work for me, because when I am able to establish, hey, this is going to happen, I get excited and I'm ready, I'm pumped. So I burn a hole in where I want to hit them. I stare at nothing but where I want to hit that animal. So there's some practical tips for you guys to try. Go and use those. Let us know if they work for you. I think that they will. Like I said, I've had several people use them. I use it religiously, and it's been a game changer for me. So go out and try that. Thank you guys to all of you that are already a part of the Raised family and already on the Raised Outdoors app and members. We've had a ton of support on that and a ton of people that have been loving the app and loving the tips. So thank you guys. If you haven't joined the app yet, make sure that you download it and then make sure that you subscribe. We got tons of new tips coming on there. And we, like I said, we do charge $4.99, but the reason we do that is because we don't have to give you ads. We don't have to push product down your throat. And we don't have to say, hey, we killed this animal because of this. It gives us the best possible platform to be able to give the most information that we can. And not to mention, we give you your money right back. You buy anything with over the 60 partner deals now, and you're going to save a ton of money. You can get 50% off trail cameras, 35% off tree stands, really anything that you want to save money on gear you're already buying, you're going to be able to easily make your money back. So if you haven't joined the Raised Outdoors app yet, make sure you do that. Download the app and join the family. Raised Outdoors is the name of the app again. So we got tons of practical tips in there. We got a lot more coming, and that are going to be kind of like this, but way more broken down. It's going to be individual videos for each thing, not just the live podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We appreciate it. I hope you all have an awesome night. If you're in Iowa here, make sure that you have a boat to get home, because we've got a lot of water. I'm looking for a John boat, so if anybody wants to donate, I'm in the market. Or if you see one with a white 71 Sea King motor, that's mine. It could still be on the river somewhere. So let me know if you're in the Iowa area and you find a boat. All right, guys, have a good night.